realistically, what I want to talk today about was kind of the toolkit for how you take a market internationally. And as I said, I'm currently the RVP of Salesloft, but I've spent 15 years in some way or another in every single company I've been in, taking what is a local sales program and taking it international. And so where we are is, I always start with what I believe is the universal truth. And I don't want to simplify it too much, but in its core, sales is like super easy. You're not going to sell something to somebody who doesn't want it. And the buyer behavior has changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years that actually you couldn't sell it to people if they don't actually need it. And by taking that universal truth of you have to sell something that is a problem, solve a problem for somebody, and they're going to want to buy it based on that. Taking what is a local market global is it is kind of much easier. I think furthermore to that, taking the kind of the last 12 months has changed a lot of the way in which we've thought about sales. And I think it used to be the norm where you might say, you know, I need to shake your hand before a deal, I need to shake your hand after the deal. And actually that's no longer expected. So with the use of technology, with a little bit of creativity, a little bit of agility, actually a lot of what we can do is taking what is that local program, that local product, and actually globalizing it. And so really what I'll do over the next couple of minutes, I've got like 5 minutes left here, is kind of just really go through how I've thought about that. Now, last time I spoke at Sales Confidence was a few years back, and I left with kind of what I talk to myself about over and over again as a sales leader, which is like, where are we? Where do we want to be? And how do we want to get there? And so in that spirit for international growth, it's what market, when do we accelerate, and who do we do it with? And so look, where we are now is the toolkit. Okay, so we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do, step one, is sort your data out. Now, sorting your data out is realistically, you can do it in a few hours these days. And I don't take that lightly. You can. The first thing you want to do, go to Google, search public data platforms. Actually, what you're then able to do is actually get all your information gathered very quickly. What the outcome of that work is really just to establish a basic market intelligence matrix, which is what I do all the time when we're looking at which markets to go into. That basic market intelligence is simple. What is my addressable market? Bonus points for how fast is that growing? Bonus points if you can work out what your actionable market is within it. Realistically, you've got public data platforms like the National Statistics or Census or even World Bank, and it's all available for you to search. The second is overview of barriers for impact. So what are some of the things that you need to take into consideration when you're launching into market? That might be what language they operate in, what's the code of conduct when you go into it, or are there any regulations? Again, Google search, no red flags, continue, that's an opportunity for you. 3, what's the level of current competition? Now, we could speak at length about this, but typically it's going to be, do you need first mover advantage, or do you actually benefit from a bona fide competitor advantage? Now, typically, if you find that you need first mover advantage, I will always push for going a little bit scrappy. And actually going in scrappy means that you can talk to your customers early. You'll learn a lot more by talking to your customers than planning to talk to your customers. 4th, similarity of consumer. This is easily the hardest part. You know, how similar is my ICP in a new market than what my ICP is in my current market? Now, this is the hardest part. Now, if you don't want to, go and get a membership for kind of something like Consumer International, there's actually a lot of exploratory research that you can go into. Things like Sage Pub is a really good example. But one thing I've fallen back into, and maybe this is my previous experience at a previous company, was actually falling back on Google Trends. So Google Trends is a really great way of assessing kind of your seasonal and parallel trends in products and search. Seeing that map aligned to each other will typically show that your ICP, your consumer, is also very similar, and you can take a lot from that. And 5th, what is most important of all of this is mapping out your existing portfolio. So which partners can I launch with, which customers I'm going to benefit from increasing my footprint, and actually very quickly what you're establishing is a really solid footprint. Now, once you've got all that, I think it's important to note that that's going to give you an indication of what market. As an example of this, and how I've used it before is, in a previous company, I guess the common wisdom was UK, France, Germany, Eastern Europe, XYZ. And actually, at the last company, we ended up in Estonia, Czech Republic, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Argentina, Brazil, Iceland. And by able to build that matrix, I was able to get the business to actually what was the 6th largest fintech in Europe within 18 months. And we actually hit profitability for the first time in 7 years, just by making sure that we have a market to push into. Now, once you have that, interest of time, is the next thing is, who do I do it with? And really, when it's who do I do it with, there's a few things we take into consideration. Now, I look at getting a scout group. That scout group allows me to go in that scrappy way of thinking about going to market. And there's 2 elements to this. One, the international language of business is English. And actually, so a lot of the times when we're launching into a new market, we don't need to do it with new hires. Actually, what you do is, for an example, I was running a sales team in Yorkshire, and we were trying to launch into Germany. Barry is not exactly Sven, but actually, because we were able to go into new wave technology, incubators, and media, where we knew that everyone spoke English, we were able to very quickly identify and ascertain how my first beachhead was going to launch. Now, we would never go much deeper than go into that in Germany. I would have to then hire local people or local language, but actually allowed me to substantiate and validate my launch before going any further. And actually having that really trusted advisor of a scout group as part of your toolkit would really allow me to build trust, because quite frankly, as we're going live into these markets, you're not going to get support from marketing. They're not going to want to go live. They don't want to go too wide. They're resource heavy. They don't have the resource to do it. Ops is not going to want to support you with more dashboards and reporting. They're not going to trust you. And legal, you're not going to be on the Christmas card list for very long if you're trying to get them to support you every time you launch into a new market. So by having this scout group that allows us to kind of be full 360, they're going to be your point of contact with your first customers. They're going to be your solutions engineers. They're going to be everything that you need to actually maximize that company. The most important thing is not worrying about local language necessarily, but worrying about a group of people that you can trust to get you and validate your go-to-market strategy. So what I wasn't able to touch on in this time, but I think it's important lastly, is once you go live, make sure that you know your North Star metric. So you've got to have, this is the country I want to go into based on my matrix. These are the people I'm going to go live with, and these are my first indicators for success. And if I know what my first indicator of success is, I can then repeat and repeat. I can then have repeatability, and I can actually go launch from there. So the toolkit really is build a matrix. Who's the market I want to go to? Use public domains. 2, build a team of trusted advisors that you know can do full 360. You want smart generalists. You don't want specialists just yet. And thirdly, make sure that you know what your key North Star metric is that validates those first indicators of success, allowing you to grow into it.